Hello, hello. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us again on XY Spark. This is Rolando. We are so happy to be sharing with you again on another day. It's the 28th of December 2020. We have about 3 days to go, and 2020 will officially be history. And what a year it's been! What a year it's been. This year has brought along so many different hurdles, so many different obstacles. The pandemic came along and it has stayed with us for a while. But I wanted to just send a shout out to all my listeners, all of you that have been listening to XY Spark. We hope that you had a very rich holiday as best as you can. Hope were able to spend some quality time with family. Hope that you were able to spend some quality time with yourself. We hope that you were able to make the best of what you had while we had it. In my own way, I spent some time, good time, quality time with family. I became a professional couch potato over the holidays, and that was okay because you were spending that quality time with family, and family like it when dad's around. Family like it when mom is around, and we are all are watching funny Christmas movies. We're laughing, we're eating, we're just relaxing because in the end we have got to make the best of it, guys. Right? So I just want to send a shout out to you, a special shout out to all my listeners, and as we look ahead for the new year, XY Spark had some really wonderful things planned for the new year. So we hope that you'll continue to join and subscribe and become patrons of XY Spark. We're also in the process of opening slots where we can run ads for different companies who might be interested. And all we are saying, guys, is that right now we are so excited to be promoting rather healthy masculinity. And so far, we are really, really happy about the support that you've been giving to us. And so this afternoon, we just wanted to take the time because we promised that we would do a special holiday edition, and this is just another one of our presentations that we're bringing to you. So if you're out there, you might not be as busy as you'd like to be. You can just join. You can join our conversation by writing a comment or a thought in our box, and we are more than happy to respond to that. We also wanted to send a loud shout out to all those who participated on our live broadcast on XY Spark that started off in September. We're talking about people like Hugh French, who started off, who was one of our first guests. Then we had Kingsley Moyo, the author of a very well-known book that promotes relationships. And so want to say a shout out to Kingsley Moyo as well. And then we had other guests on our program. We had people like Dr. Kelly Palfi, and she wrote the book Men Too. She came on the program. We had a very rich conversation with her as well as we talk about men and boys and sexual abuse and how we support them. We also had people like Dr. Naira who came on and spoke about fatherhood and from a Jungian perspective and the psychological impacts of fatherhood. And then we went on and we had guests like Lyle Notice, who came in and talked about healthy masculinity and our youth and what that looks like. And how can we forget as well Robin? We had Robin Bowle, who he came on, a very brave person too. He came on and he shared his story about being in recovery and what it's been like being in recovery and the journey that he has been on. And I want to send a huge shout out to Robin as well and say happy holidays to Robin and to all those who participated in our program. And the last guest that we had was just this past week, actually, this past weekend, actually, we had Caillou White, who he came on and he spoke about healthy masculinity and Afrocentrism, and he brought some very thought provoking things in his presentation. And so we just want to say thank you. And we cannot forget also, we had Carolyn, a nutritionist. Carolyn, she came on, she's from the Energy Shack all the way over there in Ontario, Canada, and Caroline came on and she spoke about healthy masculinity and ways that men can increase their potency, have better sex drives, be more healthy and stuff. And so for all those who came on XY Spark in the year 2020, we want to say to you, we appreciate you and we look forward to having you again for a follow up. And we just wait on you or our faithful listeners to send us an email to say who you'd like us to bring back. You can email us at Hyman, that's HYMAN, at info Hyman at xyspark.info. That's Harry, Yankee, Man, Alpha, and New at xyspark.info. So you can email us, Hyman at xyspark.info. And when you email us, we will be more than willing and we'll be more than happy to connect with you and bring back. So anyone of our guests, anyone of our broadcasts that you have heard in 2020 and you'd like that person to come back and do a follow-up, let us know and we're more than welcome to reach out to them and see if they'll be open to doing that. For the new year, we have some big things planned. Okay, XY Spark, we have already gone out and we now have great lids. Okay, baseball type cap lids. We have polo shirts. We have a new line of clothing coming out soon that you like. Their t-shirts, their polos. We're telling you guys, XY Spark is taking it to the next level in 2021. And so we're hoping that you will come along with us for the ride because it will not be the same without your participation and without your input. We also want to send a huge shout out to all the men who joined XY Spark yesterday afternoon at 2 p.m. XY Spark. We went live on Zoom and um, we had some very, very powerful men who came and participated, and we had a wonderful time just sharing and supporting and connecting with each other. And XY Spark is planning to have this live Zoom meeting uh, twice a month. For now, it's going to be virtual. Twice a month, we want to have this live Zoom meeting at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. If you're in Pacific, it's 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you're in Eastern, it's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are indeed looking forward for you to just join us. If you want to be a part of the conversation, just email us, Hyman at xyspark.info, or you can reach out to us on our website, contact xyspark.com, email us, and we'll be more than willing to send you the code so you can join the conversation. And let's continue to empower and support each other because at XY Spark, we believe that the key to having happier families is promoting healthy masculinity. And so, guys, don't go away. We have a presentation lined up for you this afternoon, and we hope that you'll stay with us as we continue to share with you. We'll be right back.
Grief and loss, trauma, mental health, alcohol and drug use, gender roles, anger management, self-esteem, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and the pressures of societal norms are real-life issues that affect men. Join Rolando, psychotherapist, author, life coach, and motivational speaker that has dedicated his profession to working with men to find a healthier alternative to cope and handle these stressors. Rolando believes that men are lacking in social, psychological, emotional, and spiritual support that is necessary for a lifestyle that promotes healthy masculinity. We invite you to join us on XY Spark, where we discuss issues that men face. At XY Spark, we believe the key for happier families is restoring healthy masculinity.
Welcome back to XY Spark. This is Rolando, your host, and this afternoon we wanted to share with you another presentation as we continue to explore the needs wheel and we're looking at the idea of well-being. And we also want to keep recognizing the originators of this. We want to acknowledge Alison Harper and Jenny Edwards as the originators of this diagram, we want to really reach out and say we thank you for the work that you put into this. Allison, we can't not do this without Allison Harper and Jenny Edwards. And if you have listeners who are familiar with who these persons are, we are more than welcome to invite you to come and be a part of our conversation here at XY Spark. We also want to acknowledge the powerful um, contributions as well that was developed by Marshall Rosenberg. And we mentioned Marshall Rosenberg earlier a couple weeks ago in one of our presentations. So what we're looking at is the wheel of needs through the work that these persons have done. And at XY Spark, because we see this as valuable, we want to talk about some of these things this afternoon. So please feel free to comment and feel free to share your thoughts as we go through this. And so we want to look at individual needs this afternoon, individual needs, and how do we meet those individual needs, and what are some of the nuggets that are vital if we are going to meet those individual needs. And so one of the first nugget that we want to start off with is the nugget of hope. If we're going to meet our needs as individuals, it's important for us to seek to find some form of hope. This pandemic that we have been experiencing, a lot of persons have lost hope. They have lost hope in the government. They have lost hope in the system. They have lost hope in their employers. They have lost hope in family. And because they have lost this hope, many persons are in a place now where they are extremely discouraged. But we want to say that if we're going to seek to re engage those individual needs, we have got to seek to reignite the flame of hope. The next piece that's important as it relates to meeting individual needs is there has to be some integrity. There has to be some integrity. We've got to recognize that we should not become so consumed with worry that we forget who we are, that we lose ourselves. Integrity is still a vital asset that you and I need to continually display as we interact in the community and in our homes. And so, for an individual need, we want to really pay attention to look at the integrity piece and to see, are we following through, and are we really practicing integrity in our day to day functioning? The next nugget that's important for us to really be mindful of is to assert one's individuality and identity. You have got to learn to really recognize that you are an individual, you are important, you do have skills, you do have your own identity. Embrace your own identity, be true to yourself, be honest with yourself, be accept who you are, build upon the strengths and the talents that you have, so that you can practice and become more empowered in your own individuality and in your own identity. And then when it comes to individual needs, the next nugget that's going to be important for us to be mindful of is the nugget as relates to choice and autonomy. Choice and autonomy. We can't reiterate this enough here at XY Spark that we have got to be more and more aware about how we use choice and what we do with the choices that we have at our disposal. And then in order for another person's individual needs to be met, we want to really recognize the achievements. And sometimes what we tend to do is we want to look and say, hey, it wasn't anything big, so what did I achieve? But we want to start breaking into the habit of recognizing even the small successes and recognizing that this thing came to fruition and this thing happened because of what I was able to do. So, yes, I did achieve something. It might not seem like a big piece, but I want you to recognize that even if the achievement would appear to be, well, it's only a 1% achievement, it is an achievement. And it's important for you to recognize that and acknowledge that for sure. Then there is the nugget that talks about competence and effectiveness. competence, and effectiveness. That's another individual need that we have, the need to be competent, the need to be effective. And we've got to remember that competence is something that over time we can develop. We might not be fully savvy in the beginning, but we can develop our competence if we open ourselves up to new learning, if we open ourselves up to asking questions, if we allow ourselves to be taught, then we can become more competent and more effective in the roles that we have. And so my biggest barrier in not achieving the competence that I should achieve is if I'm resistant to learning and resistant to changing. The next nugget that's important here for individual needs is the need for creativity. And we want to work on being creative, because when we practice and when we get into that space where we recognize that, hey, I can be creative. And I'm talking about just getting your mind into that place where you're exposing yourself to new possibilities, where you're creating something that on a normal day you would not have gone through with, but you are now challenging yourself to be more creative and you're working at it. And all of us as individuals, we want to recognize and practice some creativity in our day to day. The next piece that we have as individuals, an individual need, is a need for play and recreation. You know that saying, all work and no play makes Jack or Jill a dull boy or girl. We want to make time to recognize that I need play and I need recreation. All these pieces are important for you and for me to get into that space where we're recognizing that, hey, there's the need for play, there's a need for recreation. And for those who are just joining us here on XY Spark, we just want to acknowledge you. Thank you for being here. And we're looking at the wheel of needs. We're looking at the wheel of needs this afternoon. And we are talking about individual needs, and some of the pieces that we spoke about already is a need for hope, the need for integrity and authenticity. We're talking about the need to assert one's individuality and identity. We also mentioned earlier the need for choice and autonomy. And then we talked about the need for achievement and what that looks like and how do we do that. And then we spoke about the need for competence and effectiveness. And we mentioned that, hey, if we're going to become competent and effective, we have got to open ourselves up to new learning. We have got to allow ourselves to be taught. We have got to recognize that we need to ask questions. That way, we are going to learn and we are going to absolutely become more competent and more effective in our roles. And then we talked about the need for creativity. Okay, creativity, and how are we practicing creativity in our day to day lives as we move into that space where we start growing more, where we start becoming more and more savvy as we interact from day to day. So we talk about the need for creativity, and then we talked about the need for play and recreation. And sometimes we take life too seriously. Sometimes we have to learn to play and recognize that playing is an important part of our well-being, and it's a need that we have. The next individual need that we want to talk about here is a need for challenge and stretch. And some persons may say, why do I need challenge? Why do I want challenge? you know and I think about someone who decides that they want to start going to the gym. What's the rationale behind that? We go there and we recognize that, hey, if I'm going to build muscle, I'm going to have to challenge myself and stretch myself to the limit in order for me to build, that lean, mean working machine, if I could say that. And so we want to recognize that an individual need is that sometimes we need to have things that challenge us. Remember, challenges are not there to break us, but to make us. Challenges are there to teach us, not to discourage us. Challenges are there to bring us to another level in our experience. But if we tend to run away from challenges, the more we run away from those challenges, is the less and less and less we're going to be able to overcome and break away from those challenges. So, an individual need is a need for a challenge and a need for a stretch. Sometimes in our lives, we need to have some of those things that expose us now to new ways of thinking and break us out of our quote unquote comfort zones so that we can grow, so that we can evolve. So the need for challenge and stretch. Here's another individual need. Another individual need is a need for learning and growth. Learning and growth. Now, a popular expression that I use from time to time is one that I borrowed from one of my professors many years ago, where he says that life is not static, it's dynamic. And so, as we look through the lens of our life, we have got to continue to allow ourselves to be exposed to learning and to growth, because if we're not learning, we're not growing. Does that sound practical? When I start opening myself up to learning, those are the times when I'll start growing. And so, let's say you're at work and you don't normally work in a certain department or a certain area, but you're called upon to work in the area. You should see this as an opportunity for new growth that's going to make you more savvy in your company. Don't see it as, okay, I don't know what, where I'm going over there. I'm totally lost. No, go over there and say, hey, you know what? I'm lost on day one, but on day two, I don't feel as lost. On day three, I'm feeling a little more confident. On day four, and before you know it, if you open yourself up, you will grasp new learning. And this will also help you to grow. So I want you to recognize how valuable that is. That a big individual need that we have, and we can't forget this nugget, is the need for learning and growth. Another individual need that we have that we shouldn't miss is this: the need for openness and honesty. Openness and honesty. Now, this for some persons becomes very, very, very scary because I don't want to be open. Why should I be open? That is me allowing persons to see a side of me that I'm protecting, that I'm keeping private, quote unquote, private. Okay. If I be honest, that, for example, if I'm honest to say, well, hey, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable with this, or, this is not my skill set, or, I'm feeling scared right now about doing this thing, or I'm feeling a little bit anxious over here, or, hey, I really don't know what to do. Can you help me? If we are not practicing this as individuals, I'm telling you, as you're listening to this broadcast this afternoon, it's going to be a very challenging road because you are going to have to try to do it all by yourself, and sometimes that becomes a very, very tricky, slippery slope, rather, for me to go on. So I must be willing to open myself up, and recognize that, hey, you know what? In the end, I've got to be open and honest. So, openness and honesty is an important nugget as it relates to individual needs. The next nugget that comes under individual needs is the need for clarity and understanding. The need for clarity and understanding. Here's what's tricky: if I need to get clarity for something, how am I going to get it? How am I going to get clarity? There are several ways, but recognize that if I'm seeking to get clarity, I'm going to have to be willing to go and access supports that's outside of me. Because obviously I didn't have the answer inside of me. That's why I need clarity. So clarity, we can acquire that either by research, by asking questions, by connecting with the right people who are around there, so that we can get clarity. All right. And so An individual need that we have is the need for clarity and understanding. And what's important is this is if as men we don't understand ourselves, there's a challenge. So we need to have understanding, and we need to have an understanding first of myself. Who am I? What are my values? Where am I going? What's my goal? So I have to have some understanding of myself. There has to be some clarity, some clear, concise directives in my mind that's going to get me empowered enough so that I can go and do that which I need to do. So there's a need for clarity and understanding. Another individual need that is so critical, and here's another important nugget, is the need for order. The need for order. There's got to be some order. It can't be a cacophony of chaos. There has to be some order. I've got to seek to have some kind of routine. I've got to seek to have some understanding as to what I'm doing, where I'm going, what can I do differently. But there has to be some order. And I'm saying that everything and everywhere we turn, there is order. So the individual that need for order, we've got to seek to capture that. And we've got to seek to pin that down in our own minds. Another important individual need that we have is the need for space and time to oneself. So, as individuals, and I reiterated this so many times on the broadcast, I'm going to say it again in case you missed it. But there has got to be that recognition that self preservation is not selfishness. So, an individual need and a nugget that's critical is the need for space and time to one's self. I've got to recognize how valuable that is because it's impossible for me to give what I don't have. So I've got to find a space and a time where I can sit with myself. I can learn to appreciate myself. I can learn to acknowledge the strength that I have. I can learn to celebrate the successes that I have had. I can learn to take a step back from any toxic thinking and recognize what are some of the positive self validation and self affirmation exercises that I've been doing that has been helping me to grow. And so I want to find space and time for myself so that I can be able to better meet the needs of those who I interact with, my kids, my partner, my co-workers, people in the community. If I'm not taking time to connect with myself, then I am going to be a lot less effective. Here's another nugget that comes under the individual needs wheel, the need for self respect and self worth. And so many of us as men, we have lost what this looks like, the self respect and the self worth. We have lost it. We lost it somewhere. I don't know. Some of us might have left it at a pawn shop. I don't know. Some of us we might have walked away from it in the last relationship that we had. Some of us we might have lost it because we thought that we valued ourselves so much based on the job that we had, and now that we no longer have that job, we have lost it. Some of us have lost it because we were treated unfairly by siblings, or we came through a traumatic experience with our family of origin. Whatever or wherever it is, we have lost that self respect and that self worth. And I'm saying that we now have got to regain and reconnect with a healthy space and a healthy place where we can regain that self respect and that self worth, where we start recognizing that, hey, I might have made some mistakes, but you know what? I've recovered from it and I'm moving on and I'm growing and I'm feeling better. But a huge individual need that we have is that need for self respect and self-worth. And so my question and my encouragement to all my listeners is this: if when it comes to individual needs, I would like for you to take some time to reflect on these points that we brought to you this afternoon. Am I getting my individual needs met in the category of hope, in the category of integrity and authenticity, in the category to assert my individuality and my identity? Am I getting my needs met as it relates to choices and autonomy? An achievement? Am I getting my needs met as relates to competency and effectiveness? Are my needs being met in the area of creativity? And what and how do I do that if it's not happening now? Am I getting my needs met in the area of play and recreation? And if not, how do I do that? Am I getting my needs met in the area where it relates to, am I being challenged enough? And am I stretching myself to recognize that this is not the end of the road for me? There's a lot more potential. There's a lot more possibilities out there. Recognizing that challenges are not there to break me, but to make me. And so we are really, really, really excited, guys, to be sharing with you this afternoon about the wheel of needs and looking through the lens as it relates to individual needs. And if you're listening to Express Park and you want to even ask us a question, please feel free to type a question there in the question box. And if you want to join the conversation, you're more than welcome to do so. And what we're talking about this afternoon is the wheel of needs, looking at individual needs. The next need that we want to mention here is the need for learning and growth. The need for learning and growth. And most of us as men, we are in that space where sometimes we tend to self proclaim a space where we are more stuck. We're not growing. We're not opening ourselves up to more possibilities. But a huge individual need that we have is the need for learning and growth. In other words, never tell yourself that there is nothing else left out there for you to know. We've got to consider ourselves as lifelong learners. And this is why our last presenter, he mentioned this, Caillou White, he mentioned this, recognize that, hey, I'm not an expert, I consider myself a lifelong learner. And that was a very humbling statement to hear from our presenter. And as men, we have got to allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to recognize that, hey, I need to put myself in a space where I recognize that I am a lifelong learner. Another individual need that we want us to look at is the need for openness and honesty. Openness and honesty. And, we spoke about this at length the last time about needing more of us who are really, really willing enough to acknowledge that in the end, it's my responsibility to be honest first with myself, because that's where honesty begins. Honesty first begins with me, and then once I know what honesty looks like, it becomes much easier for me to display that as I interact. Then we talk about the need for clarity and understanding and recognizing that if we are searching for clarity, it requires humility, it requires vulnerability, it requires me coming out of my comfort zone and doing what I need to do so that I can uh, receive or experience the clarity that I'm looking for. And so, hence, we're talking about learning and understanding and how we engage in that experience. Then, another need that we talk about is a need for order and what that looks like. We also talked about the need for space and time to oneself. And we reiterate that a lot on XYZ Park as it relates to self care and self preservation and how we practice that, recognizing that we can't give what we don't have. And the last need that we mentioned is a need for self respect and self worth. And we talked about how many of us have lost that in many different areas of our lives. Some of us, we left that self worth at a pawn shop. For some of us, we left the self worth in our last relationship. We left that self worth as we were sort of the last or the black quote unquote sheep when it comes to all our siblings, or we lost that self respect and self worth because of a relationship that we have with your family of origin or some trauma that we have experienced. But we want to seek to regain that self worth and that self respect as we connect with and regain what I call the motivation and the empowerment through the right sources as we connect with other professionals who are able to point us in the right direction. And so, as usual, guys, we just want to say thank you so much for connecting with us on the XY Spark. And if you have any questions about what we have said today, please, you're more than welcome to type a question in our chat box there, and we will seek to see if we can respond to those questions right away. But if no questions, we just want to continue to say thank you so much for being a part of our conversation here at XY Spark. And we continue to say, guys, we hope that you had a wonderful, wonderful holiday period. We have 3 days left before 2020 will be officially history. And it has been what I call a very interesting year, but guess what, guys? We made it, and we've got to just keep going and keep plugging away. And so, as usual, this is Rolando with XY Spark, just saying to you, join us again during this week when we're going to continue some more live representation that has to do with empowerment and personal development. We thank you for joining us. We're glad you took the time, and we want to say we'll talk to you again real soon. Have a good night. This is Rolando. Peace out.
Please join Rolando next time on XY Spark as he engages us in practical discussions that promotes healthy masculinity and challenge men to live extraordinary lives. At XY Spark, we believe the key for happier families is restoring healthy masculinity.